I have always been a methodological, chaotic person. And this sweater that I'm about to show you, this whole project, I think is a great encapsulation of a lot of my values. The first of which is slow fashion and the slow process of the creation of stuff instead of like buying things from Amazon, buying things from Free People and Shein and all this stuff. This project, I think, is going to represent me in a way that is profoundly beautiful. The other thing is, I hate instructions. And this video is both a tutorial, but also not a tutorial for you all about how I'm making this sweater, because this sweater is an experiment. White Elephant, I do that every year at a Christmas party, a holiday party. At White Elephant, I decided that the gift that I wanted this year was the biggest gift that was under the tree, or I guess last year, Christmas of 2024. The gift that I wanted was the biggest gift under the tree, and that ended up being a gigantic bag of wool yarn because my friend who was trying to learn how to crochet also realized they were allergic to wool, and that was the gift they decided to give away. It has changed my life. Fundamentally, I taught myself how to crochet because of this gift. And I'm going to show you actually. So this right here is my craft chest. This is kind of my craft corner, and I really try to keep like all of my craft stuff contained. I've got a sewing machine tucked in the back there. I got some finished projects right here, and I've got a bunch of fabric like shoved in the top of the closet right there. And that is another project. Oh no, it's not. Well, anyways, that's where I try and keep all my crafts. In this bottom drawer, that bottom right drawer is where I try and contain all of my yarn. Because I don't want to like hoard unnecessary yarn. I want to only have the yarn that I need for a project, and then like maybe other stuff that has just come into my life. So effectively, I wanted to get rid of all of the yarn that had been sitting there for a year because in like semi-dramatic words, it's kind of a sin to like not use the yarn that's in your house. You know, it's like it's not good to just let something that was born from a plant or an animal and then created into a yarn by a person or a machine for it to just sit in the bottom of your drawer doing nothing. It was meant to be used. It was meant to be worn. That's my philosophy, at least. So this sweater that I'm currently finishing up right now represents my philosophy that things that are made should be used. They should be made intentionally. They should be made with good quality materials. They should be made slow. Also, the value of experimentation. I'm going to, well, I'll link it up above, but I followed a different type of granny square for this sweater. And it's the kind of granny square that kind of lets you blend colors together, at least optically, kind of looks like that. And I had a ton of miscellaneous yarn ranging from worsted weight to bulky and maybe even super bulky that I just wanted to get rid of. So the sweater was like the hypothesis was kind of like I have a ton of yarn of completely different colors and different weights. And is it possible to make this into a cohesive project? Because I really just want to get rid of this. I don't want to make, I already made like 6 beanies this year and like 10 balaclavas. I want to do something bigger. I don't want to make like a bunch of tiny little projects. I want to make some one like all and done project. So this is an experimentation, and I'm here to show you the success and or failure of this experimentation. Like I said, this is like this both is a tutorial and it's not a tutorial because it's an experiment. So I'm gonna kind of tell you what I did and do with that as you will. And you might have noticed that I got bangs in the middle of this video. So I did not get any clips of me crocheting the individual granny squares of the sweater, but what we are seeing right now is all of this sewn together, just the middle parts, none of the ribbing, for you to kind of understand the size of the sweater before I steamed it and before I added the ribbing. So I got distracted with my cat because he's perfect, amazing, and adorable. But that's what the sweater looked like. As you can see, there's a couple of inches left from my wrist, which is where I added the ribbing and also steamed it, which brought it to the final length, which was a very appropriate length. So it wasn't long on me or anything after the steaming and the ribbing. It was just in a perfect length. So you can kind of see what I was hoping for. That's what I was envisioning, that it would get that long. So yeah, this is right before all those final details, and that's how I knew that this project would likely work out, was putting it on like such and knowing that it would stretch and relax soon. So I am currently finishing up the neckline of this sweater. I'm going to link another video around of how I have decided to make all of the collars, the ribbing, the edges of this sweater. And effectively, I decided that for the wrists of my sweater, because it was very like wide on the arms, that I wanted them to be much more cinched. But this is already like a pretty chunky sweater, so I wanted the neckline to be like a lot more relaxed, a little smaller, a little bit more chill. So this, and I'll show you the final product later to help it better explain, but what I'm working on right now for this neckline is 4 stitches long, and for the wrists I did 8 stitches, and for the wrists I also made them cinched up a lot more, effectively doing 3 slip stitches as I'm going around instead of 2 slip stitches as I do every single row for the ribbing. And again, like, you can watch the video, this tutorial about how I'm doing the ribbing to understand what I mean when I say I did 3 slip stitches versus 2 to make the wrists a lot more cinched, a lot tighter compared to the neckline, which is pretty relaxed. I know that this light is making this look weird, or maybe a little bit weird for you guys, but it's been a game changer in my crocheting addiction, especially as like these winter months are, you know, coming on. Like the sun is setting earlier and earlier every single day, so it's nice to have some bright lighting as I'm finishing up the most magnificent, beautiful, one-of-a-kind sweater to ever exist in Baltimore. So, progress update. I just finished the collar, and I used a portable handheld steamer that I got from Ace Hardware because I avoid Amazon at all costs to help relax this. Sorry, there's a kid running. I watched a video of some girl in college talking about how she blocks her projects the easy way, and she used a handheld steamer, which is great because I'm also would prefer to do things the easy way. So you can already tell the difference from the clip I got previously of me wearing this sweater before I got the neckline and the wrists done. So you can already tell it's relaxed. And I'm probably gonna do another round of steaming to help it relax a little bit more. The last thing I have to do is the bottom hem, which I think I'm debating if I want to make it as cinched as the wrists are, so you can kind of tell how cinched they are. Like, this is a very wide sweater. This is a very cinched wrist. Whereas the neckline, I mean, aside from it being half, this is only 4 stitches and this is 8. Aside from it being half the height, like I mentioned earlier, this one, when you are going to the next row to do your ribbing, instead of doing 2 slip stitches, you do 3, and this one was only 2. Hence why it's not as cinched, because I didn't want this to be like some really chunky turtleneck. So currently debating on how I want the bottom of this sweater to be. The steaming definitely did help relax this, which is good, but as you can still tell, like, the yarn that is bulky and super bulky compared to the worsted weight yarn, you can definitely see the thickness difference. So I don't think there's any getting around that, but I'm not too bothered by it. I think it does look mildly strange. For example, like right here, because this is a size 6 yarn, it does look a little bit like ballooned right here, but I'll probably just steam it one more time and that's just gonna be how it is. And that's really not the end of the world, in my opinion. So yeah, I just gotta decide what I want to do for the bottom. I don't know if I want this to be like a, I don't think, I think I'm gonna go with this one. The regular ribbing and not the super cinched. So, yeah.
Down on war, and I stand down on the hate. We cannot.
Okay, so this is the final product, and I'm in love with it. So as you can tell from an earlier video, it's like kind of lengthened. I mean, yeah, I have the cuff here, but it's lengthened a bit. This is a very comfortable size. It's definitely more relaxed. I have the bottom edge. I have the bottom edge done. I have the neck done. And I really love it because it's kind of like a mock neck sweater. So it's not a turtleneck, which would be way too much going on, but it's not like a crew neck either. So it's warm, it's keeping all the heat in, it's colorful because I love color. I think my favorite thing about this sweater is how colorful this is while also being super cohesive. Um, so yeah, this is, I think, my most proud creative endeavor in a long time. It just represents, like I talked about earlier in the video, it represents so many values of mine. Also aesthetically, it's beautiful, it's really warm. And it's been very warm here in Baltimore for like the past couple of weeks, so I've not been able to wear this. It's been about in the 50s every day here. So once it drops down to the 40s, I will be wearing this a lot more often. It's also like the perfect length. So I think what I want to do next is actually, let's do some measurements. So you all know like the kind of nitty gritty details of how many rows and all that jazz. So yeah, let's go look at the measurements for this project. So I'm using this like headlamp strap looking thing for this camera because I don't have whatever device or camera holder that other crochet influencers have yet. So please bear with me as I use this headlamp. I'm gonna try and make it the least chaotic as possible, but you know, when I move my head, the camera's gonna move. So let's get down to measuring this out and getting into all the specs. Okay, so this is the camera that's telling me what I'm seeing here. So I'm gonna use this to make sure I'm not like completely jostling around and everything. So this is my craft notebook. This is where I write down like everything that I've ever done. I mean, I only got this a couple months ago. And today we are documenting the blue experimental granny sweater. So let's get a couple of things done first. We have the number of colors of yarn, and that was like 12 plus. There are over a dozen colors in this entire piece. And then we have the number of full squares. So when I say full squares, that does not include this, because this is a half square. So the number of full squares is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus the other side, which is 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So we have 22. Then we have the number of half squares. So that was 2. And this is for the neckline. Hey, Pinto. Alrighty. Okay, I need you to... Come on. Okay. Okay, there we are. So then we had this type of granny square, which I, again, I believe I linked earlier in the video, and if not, I'll link it here and down below. But then we have like the alternative granny square, which had three colors each. So that's 2 rows per color, which equals 6 rows. And then plus, I did 1 border where I did not do the pattern. So, right, this whole pattern, you have these front post treble crochets. That's what all these are. So these front post crochets are what enable this thing to look like it's an ombre, like these colors are melting into one another. This final row, which is the 7th row, was just normal traditional granny square of just these double crochet clusters. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 3 colors, 6 rows total, and this is the pattern where you have the front post treble crochets. The 7th row, which is the border color, which is homogeneous around all of this, no treble crochets. So when I say that we have the +1 border, which is no front post treble crochets, equals 7 rows total. So each granny square has 7 rows. Now let's measure this out. We're gonna measure it to right here, that's the end of the granny square. So we have the 0 there. So these were about 7.5 to 7 3/4 in length. 7 3/4 of an inch in length. So basically 1 granny square equals 7.75 inches squared. So, and this is post blocking. Let me write that down. This is after steaming. So this measurement right here, which is 7 3/4 of an inch, it was honestly probably like 7 1/4 inches before I steamed the whole thing, because steaming helps relax it and stretch it out. So this is post steaming, 7 3/4 inch. We can check this one over here too. That is also 7 3/4 of an inch. So that's pretty good. I tried to, when I was making this, like I mentioned earlier, these are all differently weighted yarns. So we have some worsted, some bulky, and super bulky all in here. I tried to make sure that I didn't use like 3 worsted weights or 3 super bulky weights all at once, to help kind of even it out. So let me write that down. Like type of yarn was wool, worsted through super bulky. And again, none of these yarns had labels on them, so these are just my assumptions on their sizes. But like if you look at this piece right here, literally, like this is pretty thick and that's pretty thin compared to it. So like this is really thick compared to this, which is really thin. So you can kind of tell this was a little bit thicker, that was a little thinner, that was a little thicker. This was pretty thick. So you can kind of see the differences between it all. I used a 6.5 millimeter hook, because that's kind of like a midpoint of all of this, which makes sense. And then we have the width of this sweater, 24.5 inches. So the width of the sweater is 24.5 inches. And I tend to draw a little picture. This picture is not to scale. So right here, the width of the sweater was 24 inches. Let's go to the height of the sweater. Let's do it right around here. That's about 20 inches. Depending on where you measure the height, it's 20 inches. So right here, 20 inches. If you do right here, that's 13 inches. You know, I should have used different colors for this, but I didn't feel like getting up a second time. We can look at the width of the sleeves, which is about, it's kind of hard to tell, but let's just say it's 7. Honestly, it's like, it looks like it's about 7 3/4, depending on which part you measure it. Like this part is 7, but then this part right here was 8. So we'll just say 7.5 inches. And then we have the cuff, we have the neckline cuff, and then we have the bottom cuff, the ribbing. I did 8 stitches on here, so that was about 2 inches long. So right here, 2 inches. This is probably 1 inch because it was half as long. So yeah, it's about 1 inch. 1 inch. Down here was in the middle, so that's the same length as the wrist. That's 2 inches. And so that's 2 inches also. And we have to remember that the ribbing, so the cuffs had 3 slip stitches, and then they were 8 stitches long. The neck was 2 slip stitches, 4 stitches long, and then the bottom hem was 2 slip stitches. I think that was also 8 stitches long. And I believe that's pretty much all of the numbers that you have to know about this beautiful sweater. And I literally do not know how much yarn that I used here, but let's just say that this whole project was like a dozen skeins of yarn, because that sounds, it honestly might have even been more, because most of the skeins of all these colors were about half used. So for all of this part right here, all this light blue, that was 3 whole skeins of yarn. I had just a small amount left over when I was done. So the rest of this is, let's just say, half skeins of yarn. So this whole project, let's just say like 10 skeins of yarn, 12. I would say a minimum of 10, maximum of 12 or even more. So yeah, let's take a beautiful look at this sweater. So, thank you for watching this video. I hope that it was comprehensible enough for you to recreate this project if you want to, or just to, watch an experiment and see how it turned out. That way you feel maybe more knowledgeable about your next experiment. This is the first sweater that I've ever made, ever, which is really exciting. Like, I can't believe my first sweater actually worked. Like, that's awesome. So thanks for watching. This was a chaotic video, so hopefully the next tutorial I make will be better. Or, I mean, not tutorial, but hopefully the next crochet video I make will be better. But yeah, thanks for being a part of this journey with me.